Hi everyone, so I'm going to go over some examples on decrementing. So let's start off with this problem here. It says initialize a variable called num to the value of 4. So let's do var num is equal to 4, and then it says decrement num by 1. So all we could do, let's do the longhand way first. So num is equal to num minus 1. So it says decrement num by 1. So all we could do is we could actually do num is equal to num minus 1. And essentially, after this, we could put console.log num. What's happening here is it's taking that num value of 4, and we're going to be placing the value of 4 right here. And we're just minusing 1 from it. So 4 minus 1 will give it the new value of 3. And when we console out this num value, it'll give us the number 3. So let's try that. Let me clear the screen here, and let's do node test.js, and it says 3 right here. So now I'll show you a slightly shorter hand version of decrementing. So we'll take the same num, but what we're going to do is just add minus equals 1, and then we could do console.log num. Now what's going to happen is what the value we had before, which was 3, we're going to minus another 1. So now we should get the value of 2. So if we do node test.js, you'll see here after 3 we get 2. Now I'll show you an even shorter hand version by decrementing. So we'll take the same num and we'll do minus minus semicolon. So essentially what's going to do is going to take this last value of 2 and it's going to decrease it by 1 again. And when we do console.log num, then you'll see here we get the value of 1. So essentially these are the 3 different ways that you can decrement. It's just a way of decreasing the numbers. So the only real difference between all 3 of these is that this one you can only decrement by 1, but if you see up here, for these 2 up here, you can change these values. Instead of decreasing by 1, we could say maybe 2 each time. So instead of decreasing by 1, we could decrease by 2, and when we save it, since we start at 4 at first, it goes down by 2, which will then be 2. Then we decrease again by 2, that'll give us a 0. And then the last one at the bottom here will decrease only by 1 because we can't change the value. So it'll be -1. And that's the 3 different ways that you can decrement. And there's also a way that we can decrement within for loops. So what we're going to do with the for loop is we're going to start with an empty sentence. So we'll do var sentence is equal to empty. And what we're going to do is let's start the for loop. So for var I is equal to 4, and then semicolon. Let's do I as long as it's greater than 0. And then we want to decrement now. So I minus minus, and then the curly brace brackets because we want to do something in here. And we'll put sentence plus equals the number is plus I, and then we'll just add a period at the end here and space, semicolon. And let me just set up the console.log sentence. So essentially what's happening here is we're starting off with an empty sentence, and then we're starting at the variable number 4. And what's going to happen is each time it goes through, it's just going to decrease by 1 each time. So first it starts off at 4. So I'll say the number is 4, period. Then it'll go down here. This is where it sees, okay, it's the end of the for loop, but let's go back up here and check to see if we can still go again. And it'll decrease by 1 first, so it'll be 3. And says, is 3 still greater than 0? If it's true, then yes, go through this again. So it'll be the number is 3, period. Then it'll go down here, it'll be like, oh, it's the end of for loop, so let's go back up again. And then it's going to decrease by 1. So it'll be 2. And is 2 greater than 0? Yes. So then it'll go through here and it will say, so is 2 greater than 0? If the answer is yes, then it'll keep reading inside the for loop and it'll say the number is 2, period. And then it'll go to this line here and it'll say, oh, it's the end of the for loop. Let's go back up to the top again. It'll minus 1, so it'll be the value of 1 now. So is 1 greater than 0? Yes, that is true. So it'll take this sentence again. It'll say the number is 1, period. And then it'll go to the end of the for loop. And it'll say, okay, let's go back up here and check again. And when it does this I minus minus now, since 1 minus 1 is 0, it'll check here and it'll say, oh, is 0 greater than 0? No, it's false because we're saying we want to only take what's greater than 0, not what's equal to 0. So it's going to be false and it's not even going to check inside the for loop. What it'll do is it'll skip this entire check in the for loop and it'll exit the for loop and then it'll console log out the sentence. So let's run this. So right here you could see the number is 4, the number is 3, the number is 2, and then the number is 1. And then it doesn't even get to 0 because we're only trying to check to see if it's greater than 0. So that's why we want to use these like incrementing and adding on symbols, because it's a shorthand way of doing things, and it'll be really useful once you get into using different types of loops, especially in for loops.